Good morning and welcome to Backyard and Beyond. This morning we're visiting with Mike Von Weihe and we're going to be talking about CSA. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning.
Mike, I want to find out more about you, but before that, when I say CSA, you have people look at you and this puzzled look and go, CSA, what's that?
Sure. Well, CSA is an acronym. It stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And it's basically a system where people interested in buying fresh local produce get in touch with the farmer, and they support that farmer by buying a share of produce, and they're entitled to a box or a certain amount of produce each week throughout the growing season.
Mm-hmm. And a couple of I think really important words in there is local, of course, and fresh, and getting to know your farmer. Kind of, you said you get it from your farmer, and that's I think one of the advantages of a CSA is you know who's growing your food.
Yeah, exactly. You get to develop a personal relationship with the person who is growing the food you eat.
Yeah, and in your case, I'm guessing quite a few people in your area, know you, Mike. Didn't you grow up in the area where you're going to be doing your CSA?
Yes, I grew up in Carson and went to Riverside School District. Moved away for college and now came back about 2 years ago and decided to start produce farming.
Okay. Now there has to be a reason for that. What would be?
Say that again.
Yeah, there has to be a reason for that. Why did you decide to start growing produce?
Well, I got degrees in horticulture, and I've always had an interest in growing plants in general, but there's a lot of purpose in growing actual food for people to eat. So I really enjoyed that part of it.
Did you grow up in a family that grew a garden?
Yeah. My grandparents actually got me hooked on gardening when I was really young. They always had a very nice garden, and my parents also gardened some, and my family is a farming family, so it's
and if you don't love it, it's really a lot of hard work. But if you love it, you get so much more out of being out there, even when it's taking care of the weeds rather than seeing something that you can harvest.
Yeah, it is definitely a lot of hard work, but very rewarding, rewarding work.
Now, let's talk about your CSA. As I understand, a lot of times the CSA is run by one farmer, but yours is a little bit different.
Right. Loess Hills CSA is a collaborative CSA, so we're a group of 3 farmers, Chuck and Bernie Bickle, as well as Mark Nightingale of Hancock, and myself. So we have 3 different farming locations growing produce, all for this specific CSA.
Mm-hmm. So how are you going to get that together so that they're not going to have to go to 3 farms to get this food, right?
No, actually, we have 3 different pickup locations. One will be in Carson, another in Council Bluffs, and then one in Omaha, Nebraska. So we'll harvest the food on each of our farms, bring it to a central location, and then we'll all split up and go to the pickup locations.
Okay. Now, we need a few more details in terms of if people are interested in joining your CSA, how do they do that, and how much will it cost?
Sure. The CSA, we offer full and half-size shares. A full share feeds a family of 4, and you're entitled to a box of produce every week for 18 weeks. The cost is $450 for a full share and $270 for a half share, and that ends up being, for a full share, only about 90 cents a day per person.
That's a really good way to say it, Mike, because initially you go, $480. I mean, that sounds like a lot of money in terms of a family's food budget for maybe for some families even a month, although $480 doesn't go that far in the grocery store anymore. But per day, my goodness.
Yeah, it's only 90 cents a day for fresh, local produce. So I think it's really a steal if you like to eat vegetables, even if you don't.
Are you going, let's talk a little bit about what's in there. You've mentioned vegetables. Are you going to have any fruit?
We will. We'll have strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries for sure. We might even have some grapes. So.
And then there's something like rhubarb. You're gonna have
yeah.
Is that a fruit
we have
or
one
a veggie?
farmer who does have rhubarb.
Okay, because a lot of people love rhubarb, and I think partly because it's kind of one of those early things.
Yep. Yep, early in the
Excellent.
season.
Okay, what about, I'm sure you're going to do tomatoes and peppers, some of those very usual things, but let's expand on that. What else among the three of you are you going to be offering?
We've got just about everything from broccoli to zucchini. We've got salad mix, heads of lettuce, carrots, some cabbage, a vegetable called kohlrabi, which is related to broccoli. But it's like you slice it. It tastes a little bit like a radish, but a nice taste. We've got Swiss chard, which is kind of a unique item. It's like a cooking green, kind of like spinach, but a slightly different taste.
How about sweet potatoes?
Yes, we'll actually have some sweet potatoes too.
Okay, and I'm sure you're going to have regular potatoes. What
Oh
about
yeah.
the melon line? Do you think you're going to have anything in the melon line?
We definitely have squash. I can't remember if we decided to grow melons or not.
Sometimes that's a real challenge. Get all those little bugs out there, and the weather is so important. Because the weather is important when whatever you're talking about here,
It's
and
true.
that's part of when you talk about weather. That's part of this whole CSA theory, right? That families have to know that in different weather they might get different produce.
This is true, yeah. Part of the CSA model is that the customer is supporting the farmer even in hard times when the weather is not cooperative for certain crops, when there's a drought. The customer still pays the money and gets what produce is available. So in a really good year, there'll be an overabundance of produce. In a less abundant year, there'll be slightly less produce. But I think a real advantage with the collaborative CSA, for instance, if one of our farms gets hail damage, the other two are probably not likely to get that same hail damage.
Sure.
So that'll help ensure that there's an ample supply of fresh produce.
And it seems to me that maybe one of you is more a specialist in one area than other, has more expertise growing some of the produce than others.
Yeah, that's also true. I'm a fairly new young farmer. The other two farms in this collaborative CSA have quite a bit more experience than me, so we all kind of have our little niches that we can contribute.
Yes. And so you've got this network of working together there in terms of somebody learns something new, they pass it on to the other two of you, and you all share in that knowledge and making your product better. So
Yeah, it's a great system.
yes, very good. Okay, we talked about price and we talked about how many this will serve. How do people sign up?
Sure. We have an email address that we're taking names and contact information. Our email is Loess, L-O-E-S-S, Loess Hills CSA @gmail.com. Interested people can also contact me at my cell phone number. It's 402-669-0395. We also have a Facebook page. If you just search on Facebook, Loess Hills CSA. And we also have a presence on a website called localharvest.org, which is a network of CSAs, farmers markets, small produce farms all across the United States, and it's real easy to search and find farms in your area.
Yeah, that's maybe an easier one to remember if people aren't jotting all this down, and also gives them an opportunity to see others in the area because you put in your zip code or some other information, and you get this list and kind of get more acquainted with people. So that's Local Harvest. Just put that in your search, and it'll pop up there real easy. But if they want to go directly to you at Loess Hills CSA I didn't get the last part.
At gmail.com.
At Gmail. Okay. I have a short memory sometimes, Mike. Okay. So, in summing up here, Mike, you're doing the CSA again. Do you have a deadline date for when people need to be signed up?
We don't have a firm deadline. We'll be sending out contracts to the people we have information for probably within the next several weeks, but we can always send out contracts if we don't meet our quota. We're trying to find 20 full shares.
Okay. Betcha.
But we'll also collect a waiting list. So if somebody drops out during the season, we can add somebody else who might be on our waiting list.
Okay.
So there's always time to sign up.
Yeah. And the other thing, that waiting list, this just popped in my head. Sometimes somebody goes on vacation and they can't pick up their share. That might be a good person who would be willing to kind of share the share.
Yeah,
So
give it a try for a week.
Yes, absolutely. So we want to thank you very much, Mike Von Weihe, for visiting with us about the Loess Hills CSA, and encourage people to find out more about it by going to Local Harvest or one of the addresses you gave us. And just be thinking about all that good stuff that's coming. Makes my mouth water, Mike.
Good.
Yes,
Thanks for having me, Lavon.
Yes, you bet. And until next time, here's a thought. Act as though it were impossible to fail.